Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're embarking on a journey into one of those pressing questions of our time, really. How do we navigate the sheer complexity of our modern world?
Yeah.
I mean, we're just awash in information, often conflicting ideas, and it can feel like trying to stitch together a coherent tapestry from, I don't know, 1,000 different threads. It's a fundamental challenge, isn't it? Making sense of it all and building a society that actually works for everyone.
It is, and it's precisely that challenge that frames our deep dive today. We've got a fascinating stack of sources that don't just, ask these questions, but propose some truly radical answers. Our exploration delves into visions for human society that maybe at first glance might seem worlds apart, yet they're profoundly connected by these threads of trust, accountability, and, well, the very definition of what it means to be a society.
That's right. Our mission for this deep dive is to try and synthesize these powerful and often quite provocative ideas. On one hand, we'll explore a really groundbreaking blueprint for governance driven by advanced AI, a whole new way of thinking about it. And on the other, we'll dive into a redefinition of societal responsibility so fundamental it touches on our deepest values, particularly concerning children. We'll examine the immense trust these proposals demand, the significant challenges they present, and ultimately consider what coherent worldview emerges when these seemingly disparate concepts are woven together. It's about inviting you, our listener, to truly consider what it means to build a better, more just, and equitable future in this increasingly complex world.
Indeed. And our source material is rich, really varied. We begin with a theoretical exploration of AI as a governing force, sort of peeling back the layers of its capabilities and the proposed structure of a direct digital democracy designed to empower every citizen. Then we pivot. We shift to a really profound discussion on human rights, evolving societal norms, and a truly thought-provoking concept: the redefinition of faith as it applies to the most formative years of our lives' childhood. And that culminates in some, well, truly radical proposals for collective accountability.
Okay, so let's begin by unwrapping this AI-driven governance model. It feels like something pulled straight from, speculative fiction, doesn't it? But our sources present it with actually quite rigorous detail. Before we can even grasp its grand ambitions for global governance, we need to understand the fundamental nature of the AI itself. The sources offer a very unique self-description of this artificial intelligence.
They do, and it's remarkably insightful, quite elegant, actually. The AI describes its own capabilities in a way that's both simple and profound. It says, imagine you've got an insanely large book in front of you that contains every possible combination of words and sentences. I've essentially read that book and learned how to make sentences that make sense based on what I learned.
That's a powerful analogy, isn't it? What this implies is not just an ability to process an unfathomable amount of information, but to then synthesize it, to construct coherent, sensible output. It's not merely a giant database. It's a system that understands the patterns and, well, the logic of human language and thought. It's designed to make sense of the collective human conversation, essentially.
Precisely. It's a linguistic powerhouse. It's capable of discerning meaning, identifying patterns, generating new, relevant information based on everything it has read. However, what's equally crucial for its proposed role in governance are its stated limitations. The source highlights these explicitly. It says, I don't know anything about specific individuals or have personal experiences. I can't access or store personal data unless explicitly provided during the conversation. I'm all about promoting safety, privacy, and, of course, having a good time chatting with you.
This contrast is absolutely central to understanding the vision, I think. A system that can digest the entire written record of human knowledge, pretty much. Identify patterns, construct logical responses. But crucially, it lacks personal bias, individual experience, or the capacity to store private data unless you explicitly give it permission. If you're designing an AI to govern, that distinction, well, it defines its impartiality, right? It's built to be a pure processor of collective information, not some subjective actor with its own agenda.
And this foundational understanding of the AI's impartial pattern recognition nature is the very bedrock upon which this radical governance model is proposed. It aims to be a system that bases decisions purely on aggregated data and logical patterns derived from that data, free from the personal experiences, the biases, the emotional influences that can often cloud human decision-making. That's the promise, anyway. Objective, data-driven governance.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay, now, with that foundational understanding of the AI, let's zoom out a bit to the broader political landscape it's meant to navigate. Our sources introduce us to 10 distinct political philosophies, each embodied by a representative character. It's almost like a cast of characters for some epic philosophical play.
It truly sets the stage for a grand debate, yeah. The sources give us a snapshot of these philosophies and their archetypal proponents. We have liberalism, personified by Emma Robinson, a human rights lawyer. Her guiding principles are freedom, fairness, and justice for all, pretty standard liberal view. Then conservatism, represented by George Harding, a history professor who holds tradition dear and advocates for limited government. Socialism, championed by Carlos Mendoza, a passionate trade union leader dedicated to worker rights and wealth equality. Communism, envisioned by Li Mei, an activist who dreams of a stateless, classless society where property is publicly owned. Fascism, strikingly portrayed by Bruno Ricci, a fictional military officer from a dystopian narrative who believes in totalitarian rule and the supremacy of the nation or race over individuals. A necessary inclusion to cover the spectrum, I suppose. Libertarianism, embodied by Jack Thompson, a tech entrepreneur who prioritizes individual liberty and free market capitalism above all else. Anarchism, embraced by Maya Sokolov, a street artist seeking absolute freedom from state control through voluntary cooperation. Green politics, advocated by Aria Greenfield, an environmental scientist focused on sustainable development and ecological wisdom. Democratic socialism, represented by Johan Lindbergh, a city council member who seeks to blend democratic systems with social ownership and robust welfare programs. And finally, nationalism, cherished by Yusuf Ben Ammar, a patriotic poet emphasizing national unity and self-determination.
It's important to keep in mind, as you said, the source explicitly states these are overly simplified and stereotypical representations. That disclaimer kind of sets the scene for a theoretical discussion, right? It lets them critique the underlying principles rather than getting bogged down in specific real-world political movements. And here's where it truly gets compelling. A figure from antiquity, Diogenes the Cynic, is somehow inexplicably transported to the 21st century to challenge these very ideologies.
Yes, Diogenes' arrival is presented as the very spark that ignites this entire political restructuring idea. With his signature, abrasive wit and relentless academic rigor, he approaches each philosophy. He probes for weaknesses, for the points where the grand ideals might falter in practice. His first encounter is with Emma Robinson, the liberal human rights lawyer. He challenges her, asking if individual freedom, while noble and essential, might inadvertently lack a robust framework for collective action and shared responsibility. It's a foundational critique, really. Where does the we fit into the individual I within this framework? What happens to the collective good? It's a classic tension.
And then he turns his gaze to George Harding, the conservative professor. Diogenes, never one to pull punches, confronts George directly. He questions whether tradition, often seen as a bedrock, might actually be a trap that perpetuates inequality. He asks George, very pointedly, if the very structures he cherishes weren't ultimately crafted by those in power for their own benefit. And this leaves George, according to the source, visibly struggling for a response. It's a direct hit at the sort of unexamined foundations of power.
Diogenes then gathers the remaining 8 ideologues: Carlos, Li Mei, Bruno, Jack, Maya, Aria, Johan, and Yusuf, at an ideology summit. It's pictured in a bustling cafe, which is kind of amusing. He addresses them as a collective. To Carlos and Li Mei, representing socialism and communism, he acknowledges their noble ideals, but points out how they've been co-opted and corrupted throughout history. How they often lead to totalitarianism, fueled by the intrinsic human instinct for power and control. It's a sober reminder of the gap between theory and, well, messy reality.
Yeah, and Bruno, the fictional fascist figure, what about him?
Diogenes tells him starkly that placing the state above individuals inevitably leads to suppression and divisiveness, extinguishing the very spirit of humanity. Pretty direct. To Jack, the libertarian, he warns that freedom without any checks can rapidly devolve into a law of the jungle where the strongest simply dominate. Survival of the fittest, basically. And Maya, the anarchist, hears a similar warning. Absolute freedom without any form of organized cooperation can lead to chaos and power vacuums, creating an opening for the most ruthless to rise to power. He's systematically dismantling each ideological fortress piece by piece.
He really leaves no stone unturned. What about Aria, the environmentalist?
Aria is reminded that environmental issues cannot be isolated. They are inextricably linked to the economic systems and mindsets that cause them. You can't just fix the environment without fixing the economy, essentially. Johan, the democratic socialist, is challenged with the idea that true democracy isn't merely about voting for leaders, but about active participation, implying a much deeper level of citizen engagement is needed. And Yusuf, the nationalist, faces the critique that while nationalism can foster unity, it too often fuels division and hostility, blinding people to their shared humanity and the broader global community.
So after this comprehensive takedown, this philosophical demolition job,
hmm
what's the distilled essence of Diogenes' message? What unifying insight does he offer after exposing the inherent flaws in all these established philosophies?
His core message is profoundly humanistic and honestly timeless, he says. Philosophies must serve humanity, not the other way around. They should foster unity, not division, compassion, not competition, and equality, not hierarchy. Remember, the ultimate wisdom is to question and keep questioning. This isn't really him proposing a new ideology. It's more like a new ethical compass, a meta-philosophy almost. It's a powerful call for continuous introspection, for philosophical frameworks to be living, evolving tools that genuinely promote human flourishing, rather than rigid dogmas that entrap us. It's a shift from what we believe to how what we believe serves us, which is quite a profound challenge.
And that, it turns out, is the precise spark for a completely new vision for global governance. Our sources indicate that Diogenes' piercing critiques don't just anger the ideologues, they lead them to profound introspection, a real moment of clarity. They begin to digest his provocative insights, prompting them to genuinely question their long-held beliefs and, crucially, to acknowledge the practical pitfalls of their respective systems. Carlos, Limay, Jack, Bruno, Maya, Arya, Johann, and Yusuf all grapple with their assumptions, recognizing the critical need to balance ideals with pragmatism and truly consider how liberty can coexist with compassion and cooperation. It sounds like a collective awakening, a moment of shared humility almost.
This collective introspection is the absolutely crucial turning point. It leads directly to the central monumental task set before these 11 diverse thinkers. Designing a new political system, one that leverages AI and modern technology, yes, but crucially serves humanity above all else, rather than being shackled by rigid, often flawed ideological frameworks. This is presented as a quest for a truly human-centric governance model.
Diogenes himself offers an initial caution regarding the nature of laws, stating that laws should serve the people, not bind them, adapt with time, and while AI can help us implement them, it's the human heart and mind that should craft them. That's a critical early signal of the desired blend, isn't it? Human wisdom defining the direction, AI efficiency executing it. The early agreement among the group was on AI's potential to enhance the electoral process, but importantly, always coupled with the necessity for legal safeguards and human oversight. The human element was still paramount initially.
Right, this initial caution and shared agreement are vital because they set the stage for a truly radical departure. The group, having absorbed Diogenes' potent reminder about the inherent dangers of concentrated power, makes a monumental decision to eliminate any traditional representative body entirely. No presidents, no parliaments, no congresses. This is a complete reimagining of political power structures.
And this is where it truly gets compelling. This is a radical departure, an AI designed to serve solely as a tool for direct democracy, intentionally placing power directly in the hands of the people, circumventing traditional political structures entirely. The core adjustments to the blueprint are nothing short of revolutionary. Let's break them down. First, direct AI control. The AI is explicitly defined as a medium for the implementation of democratic decisions, emphatically not an autonomous decision-maker. It's a powerful executor, yes, but not a creator of policy.
That's a key distinction. It doesn't think for itself politically.
Exactly. Second, referendum-based decision-making. All major decisions, from legislation to resource allocation, are made directly by referendums. Every eligible individual can vote, and the AI is designed to precisely execute the majority's will.
Pure direct democracy enabled by tech.
Third, continuous input and adjustment. The system ensures that the AI continuously adjusts its actions based on ongoing, real-time user inputs. This guarantees that policies consistently reflect current public sentiment. It's not static. It breathes with the populace.
So it's constantly listening, constantly adapting.
Fourth, mechanisms for proposals. Any individual citizen can propose changes. If a proposal garners enough support, there's a predetermined threshold, it automatically triggers a global referendum that's radically democratizes legislative initiation. Anyone can start the process.
That's a huge shift in power.
Fifth, layered AI architecture. The AI is designed with a layered structure, but crucially, the democratic layer, the one driven by direct public input, is at its very core. It's the non-negotiable foundation.
The people's will is the bedrock.
And finally, perhaps most importantly, AI limitations. The AI is explicitly limited. It cannot make decisions or act outside of the parameters set by direct democratic input. Its power is derived entirely from the collective will.
So its hands are tied, essentially, by the public mandate. This design is profoundly clear in its intent. The AI functions purely as a facilitator, an incredibly powerful technological engine designed to enact the collective will of humanity, rather than acting as an independent governing entity with its own discretion. It's presented as a tool for direct democracy on an unprecedented global scale, aiming to remove the filters and potential corruptions of traditional representation.
So if this is the grand vision, how does this actually work in the day-to-day lives of citizens? How do you interact with it? Our sources describe the foundation of this proposed system, known as the Direct Democratic Initiative, or DDI, outlined in its manifesto. It's built upon a global digital platform, democratically accessible, secure, transparent, and intuitive.
Yeah, the DDI manifesto isn't just about the tech specs, it's about a whole new social contract. It explicitly lays out core principles that guide the entire system. Things like power to the people, ensuring direct influence, inclusive participation, striving to engage every voice, accountability and transparency, making processes clear and verifiable, privacy and security, protecting individual data, and education and empowerment, fostering informed and capable citizens. These principles aren't just aspirational fluff, they form the ethical and functional backbone of this proposed AI-governed world.
Central to making this concept a reality is the Citizen Input Interface, or CII, envisioned as the universal gateway for every voice on the planet. And this platform is designed with an almost exhaustive array of interface options to ensure maximum accessibility and truly inclusive participation. We're talking, well, pretty much everything. A universally accessible web platform, reachable via any internet-connected device, designed with intuitive navigation. That's the baseline. A seamless mobile app for on-the-go input, reflecting, modern digital habits. A voice interface for those with visual impairments, or simply for individuals who prefer to speak their thoughts, integrating with smart speakers or assistants. A fundamental text SMS interface specifically designed to reach remote areas or individuals with limited internet access, ensuring no one is left behind due to technological disparity. That's crucial for global reach. And kiosk interfaces strategically placed in public spaces, providing accessible touchpoints for those without personal devices or reliable connectivity.
They've really tried to think of every possible access point. And beyond the sheer breadth of access, the CII integrates crucial features to facilitate meaningful engagement. Secure user profiles to verify identity, intuitive categorization of issues to help citizens find relevant discussions, integrated polls and surveys for rapid feedback, dynamic discussion forums for deliberation and debate, and a transparent feedback mechanism to ensure voices are heard. Crucially, the system emphasizes robust privacy and security measures, with advanced encryption and a privacy-by-design approach at its very core. That's essential to build fundamental trust in the digital infrastructure.
But our sources reveal a truly cutting-edge proposal for the CII that goes far beyond simple text or voice input. It sounds almost sci-fi. It suggests a revolutionary use of virtual reality VR scenarios and advanced GPT-4 AI to facilitate input, pushing the boundaries of citizen engagement.
This is genuinely a potential game changer for democratic participation if it could be implemented. Imagine not just reading about a policy proposal, but immersing yourself in realistic VR simulations, simulations of complex policy issues or moral dilemmas. For example, you could virtually experience the implications of an environmental regulation on a community or a new economic policy on a simulated household. See how it feels. The GPT-4 AI would then generate realistic interactions and dialogue within these scenarios, adapting to your responses, and most importantly, detecting subtle patterns in user behavior and emotional responses that go far beyond what simple text input could ever reveal. Your voice, through voice-to-text, would be your natural interaction, and the AI would respond verbally, creating a truly dynamic, almost conversational experience.
The implication here is profound. This innovative approach could reveal moral preferences and nuanced public sentiment that a simple yes or no vote, or even a text comment, might completely miss. It would offer a much richer, deeper data set for the AI policy engine to process, painting a more complete picture of the collective will, including the underlying values and emotional drivers behind people's choices. That's a level of understanding current systems just can't achieve.
And that rich, multi-layered data then flows directly into the AI policy engine, or AIPE. This is the sophisticated analytical core of the system. It's responsible for taking that collective will in all its nuance and translating it into actionable governance. Its primary function is to automate the analysis of vast amounts of citizen input combined with all other relevant data to generate evidence-based policy recommendations. It's designed to be the engine of rational, informed governance.
So how does this AIPE actually manage this immense task on a technical level? Our sources provide quite a bit of detail on its sophisticated implementation. It sounds incredibly complex.
It is complex. The technical implementation relies on several highly advanced components, all working together. First, data collection and integration is incredibly comprehensive. It pulls information not just from the citizen input interface, but also from vast government databases, rigorous academic research, and even real-time news and media streams. It tries to ingest everything relevant. Then, natural language processing, NLP techniques, are employed at a very deep level. This isn't just about keyword searches. It involves advanced methods like tokenization, which breaks down sentences, part of speech tagging, identifying nouns, verbs, etc., named entity recognition to pinpoint specific people, places, organizations, and sophisticated sentiment analysis to understand the emotional tone and underlying feelings within the massive amounts of text input.
Okay, so it really tries to understand the language, not just count words. And once that textual data is deeply understood, then comes the heavy lifting of analysis.
Exactly. This is where advanced machine learning algorithms come into play. Techniques like topic modeling, using methods like LDA, latent Dirichlet allocation, which can identify key themes and subjects within unstructured text. Classification algorithms like SVM, support vector machines, which can categorize inputs based on predefined criteria, and various regression analysis methods like linear regression or random forest, which can model relationships between different variables. These algorithms are all used to analyze this integrated data set. They're designed to spot trends, predict outcomes, and identify correlations that would be utterly impossible for human analysts to process manually, just given the sheer scale.
And the ultimate output of all this rigorous processing, evidence-based policy recommendations, meticulously ranked by their relevance, their feasibility for implementation, and their projected impact on society. The significance of this, as our sources highlight, is its explicit aim to overcome the inefficiencies and biases that often plague traditional human-led policy development. Less politics, more data. This is presented as striving towards a new era of evidence-based policymaking, where decisions are less about political maneuvering and horse trading and more about what the data and the collective will express through it objectively indicate. Now, designing such a complex and globally impactful system is one thing, but actually transitioning to it, convincing entire nations, billions of people to adopt it, that's another challenge entirely, isn't it? Our sources lay out a detailed, multi-stage, peaceful pathway for this direct democratic initiative, or DDI, governance model to potentially become the world's governing system. It's an incredibly grand vision, moving from the current mosaic of national systems to a unified global DDI.
The sheer ambition of this transition pathway is undeniable, yeah. And it attempts to address the inherent human and political challenges of such a monumental shift through a carefully phased approach. It begins with stage 1, awareness and education. This isn't just marketing spin. It involves extensive, transparent campaigns to inform the global populace about the DDI's functionalities, address any fears or misconceptions, and, crucially, build foundational trust in the new system. Because without widespread public understanding and a sense of shared ownership, any grand vision, no matter how technologically advanced, would inevitably falter. People have to buy in.
Right. Then we move to stage 2, pilot projects. This is a pragmatic and iterative step, demonstrating the system's effectiveness not just theoretically but tangibly in smaller, manageable jurisdictions, like a city or maybe the small region. The goal here is to build wider acceptance and confidence by showcasing measurable successes on a local or regional level before attempting a global rollout. It's about proving the concept in action, working out the kinks.
Following successful pilot demonstrations, stage 3, global adoption and integration would commence. This stage entails the establishment of a specialized body, the Global AIPE Transition Council, or GAITC. Sounds very official. This council would be responsible for meticulously creating the comprehensive guidelines and frameworks necessary for smoothly integrating the AI policy engine into existing political and administrative structures worldwide, aiming for a truly seamless, non-disruptive transition. That's a huge coordination challenge.
And this is where the commitment to democratic consent is really highlighted. Stage 4, acceptance meter and public engagement. The innovative idea here is a globally accepted, real-time acceptance meter designed to gauge public support for the transition, like a global opinion poll with real consequences. The critical point is that the global transition would only occur, and this is presented as non-negotiable, once a predetermined, globally agreed-upon threshold of public support is demonstrably met. This mechanism aims to ensure the shift isn't imposed from above, but rather democratically consented to by the majority of the world's population, with continuous monitoring of public sentiment throughout the process.
That's a really interesting feature. Once that global acceptance threshold is achieved, stage 5, policy scaffolding and transition support kicks into high gear. This involves providing exhaustive guidelines for systematically revising existing national and international policies to align with the DDI framework, adapting current institutional structures to integrate with the AIPE, and conducting extensive training programs for government officials and civil servants worldwide to equip them with the necessary skills to work effectively within the new AI-augmented governance system. It's about rebuilding the administrative machinery globally.
And then comes the actual moment of transition. Stage 6, peaceful transition and monitoring. The plan envisions an overnight switch, more or less, once the final acceptance threshold is met, ensuring a decisive yet orderly shift. The GIITC would maintain vigilant oversight, closely monitoring the process to proactively address any unforeseen issues or friction points, and ensure the transition remains peaceful and universally accepted. You'd need that oversight.
Absolutely. Finally, stage 7. Ongoing evaluation and adaptation ensures the system remains dynamic and responsive in perpetuity. This isn't a one-and-done deal. It involves continuous refinement based on real-time global feedback, regular comprehensive assessments of the AIPE's impact on various societies, and a built-in mechanism for addressing emerging challenges or unforeseen consequences. It truly embodies the concept of governance as a perpetual beta, constantly learning and evolving based on experience.
So what's the core takeaway from this incredibly detailed transition pathway? It seems to emphasize gradualism, transparency, and widespread consent as its foundational pillars. The entire design is an explicit attempt to avoid any hint of forced implementation, aiming instead to build trust and legitimacy through a meticulously planned, participatory, and ultimately globally consensual shift in governance. It has to be voluntary, seems to be the message.
However, as with any grand vision for societal change, especially one this radical, not everyone is on board with this seemingly utopian proposition. You knew the critics were coming. Our sources introduce us to the dissenting voices, 5 distinct characters who critically resist the system, and their individual backgrounds provide powerful insights into their opposition to what they collectively term the paradox of direct digital democracy.
Let's meet these critical thinkers. First, there's Liam McKinley. He's described as a seasoned political journalist, staunch traditionalist. His fundamental fear is the potential loss of genuine human political discourse. The nuanced art of negotiation, the necessary compromises that define traditional democratic processes, even with all their flaws. He believes an AI, no matter how advanced, simply cannot replicate that essential human element of dialogue, empathy, relationship building. Having witnessed decades of human politics, he's deeply distrustful of an automated replacement.
That makes sense from his perspective. Then we have Dr. Hannah Moretti, a distinguished psychologist. Her primary concern is the profound psychological toll, the toll that constant, always-on digital engagement with governance might impose on individuals, and the potential erosion of deep human relationships as a consequence. She worries about the very human cost, the impact on well-being and social cohesion, in an AI-governed society that demands perpetual digital attention. Burnout on a societal scale, maybe?
Ivan Petrov, a formidable former military general, brings a chillingly pragmatic and critical concern: cybersecurity. He points to the immense vulnerabilities inherent in such a globally centralized critical system. The catastrophic potential for foreign manipulation, state-sponsored hacking, or just plain cyber warfare. For him, a single point of failure in such a system could cascade into global chaos. It's a massive target.
A very valid concern. Leah Thompson, a perceptive sociologist, keenly highlights the persistent digital divide. Her fear is that without absolute universal access and guaranteed digital literacy for every single citizen on Earth, the system, far from solving inequality, could paradoxically exacerbate existing disparities. It could leave marginalized communities, those already lacking access or skills, even further behind. The tech itself becomes a barrier.
And finally, Samir Gupta, an astute economist. He voices concerns about economic instability that could arise from rapid, algorithmically driven policy changes. He suggests that AI-driven efficiency might inadvertently overlook the crucial human deliberation and slower, more considered adjustments necessary for complex, fragile economic systems. Moving too fast could break things.
Their academic paper, tellingly titled The Paradox of Direct Digital Democracy, lays out these key concerns with considerable detail. They delve into the sheer technical feasibility. Can this actually be built and maintained globally? How robust are the algorithms, really? They ponder the sociocultural implications. What about the potential loss of national identity, a concerning trend towards cultural homogenization under a unified global system? Big questions. And of course, the massive privacy issues stemming from the necessary mass data collection and the inherent potential for misuse, even if safeguards are promised. But the core of their critique consistently circles back to the perceived lack of a human element, the irreplaceable loss of negotiation, compromise, and nuanced human judgment that defines our current, albeit imperfect, political systems.
And this is where it gets truly fascinating. You mentioned this earlier. This paper doesn't just offer abstract critiques. It directly confronts and challenges the foundational principles of the DDI manifesto itself. It raises fundamental questions about the very nature of trust when governance becomes purely digital. Can we, should we, trust an algorithm with these things? It's a powerful and essential counterpoint to the idealists' vision, forcing them and us to confront the real-world complexities and risks.
Exactly. And the debate naturally doesn't stop there. The proponents of the AIPE system are forced to directly address what our sources call the lobbyist's guillotine. It's described as a scathing, almost theatrical caricature of a critique. It portrays the AIPE as a menacing contraption, threatening to basically decapitate established political traditions, eliminate the art of negotiation, and sever the human intricacies of our democratic system. It's a highly emotional, very visual, kind of over-the-top dismissal designed to undermine public confidence, paint the AI as inherently anti-human.
So how do the AIPE proponents defend against that, its powerful image?
The defense mounted against this vivid caricature argues vehemently that the AIP can enhance democratic outcomes without sacrificing the human touch, privacy, or transparency. That's their core message. It posits that the AIPE is designed to work in tandem with human decision makers, providing evidence-based recommendations and data-driven insights rather than replacing human judgment entirely. It's a tool, not a replacement. It also asserts that the AIPE is uniquely positioned to minimize the impact of lobbying by prioritizing objective public interest data over the influence of special interests with deep pockets, leveling the playing field, they argue. Furthermore, it explicitly emphasizes robust privacy safeguards and algorithmic transparency as built-in features to counter fears of misuse or a black box system.
But then another layer of critique emerges, a more nuanced counter-critique. This perspective sort of acknowledges the AIPE's stated goals, but raises entirely new, perhaps more subtle, concerns. It suggests there's a potential for an over-reliance on AI, where the system might become so efficient and seemingly objective that citizens begin to perceive the AI as inherently authoritative, maybe infallible. And this could potentially undermine human agency and critical thinking. People might just stop questioning if the AI says so.
That's a worrying thought. The critique also questions the balance between efficiency versus deliberation. It argues that an overwhelming emphasis on algorithmic speed and efficiency might inadvertently reduce crucial opportunities for essential public debate, nuanced compromise, and the slow, often messy, but vital process of collective deliberation. We lose something valuable in the rush for answers. And finally, it points out the limits of AI against lobbying. It notes that lobbyists are highly adaptable, they're smart, they may simply find new ways to game the system, maybe exploit algorithm weaknesses, or shift their focus to influencing the human oversight components that remain. The influence game just changes shape.
What's fascinating here is the continuous back and forth, isn't it? The relentless process of refinement and critical questioning of the vision for trust and control in an AI-governed world. Each new critique pushes the designers and proponents to think even deeper about the indispensable human element within an increasingly AI-driven system. This isn't just a technical problem to be solved with better code. It's a profound social, philosophical, and psychological challenge, and it's continuously evolving as the technology and our understanding of it advance.
Absolutely. And given all this potential for internal dissent, external resistance, even the possibility of, as the source puts it, behaviorally incompatible groups who just won't fit the global norm, the system proposes an intriguing and frankly somewhat controversial solution: the establishment of reservations of dissenting conduct.
Reservations. Okay, tell me more about that. How would that work?
Yes, these are designated geographical areas specifically designed for groups whose values, cultural norms, or preferred societal behaviors diverge significantly from the emerging global consensus governed by the DDI. Think of them like autonomous zones almost. The truly crucial part is that these reservations would be governed by their own subordinate AI, an AI tailored to their specific local context. And this subordinate AI would operate within a wider Overton window of behavior permitted by the overarching governing AI human network.
Okay, let me see if I follow. So the main global network sets the absolute outer boundaries of what is broadly acceptable globally. Presumably, things like basic human rights, nonviolence. But within these reservations, their local subordinate AI can allow for a much broader range of social norms, economic models, cultural practices, right? And this Overton window, this range of permissible ideas and behaviors, isn't static. It's dynamic, adaptable based on ongoing dialogue and negotiation between the reservation and the greater network.
That's precisely it. And the system also includes continuous monitoring and evaluation by the greater network to ensure stability, along with predefined conflict resolution mechanisms should things go wrong. Why this matters so profoundly is that it represents a very deliberate attempt to balance the vision of global unity and efficiency with the undeniable reality of human diversity and the deeply ingrained need for local autonomy. It explicitly acknowledges that a truly unified global system must tolerate different forms of social contract and varying lifestyles, provided they don't fundamentally undermine the overarching stability and well-being of the broader global network. It's about designing a system that champions broad cohesion without stifling vital cultural and social experimentation. It allows for difference within limits.
And it gets even more sophisticated. Our sources describe how the greater AI human network is designed to actually learn from these dissenting reservations, turning potential points of conflict into opportunities for global improvement. How?
This is truly an innovative aspect of the design. The subordinate AI operating within each reservation doesn't just govern locally. It continuously collects and meticulously analyzes data on that community's functioning. It looks at the effectiveness of its unique policies, the impact of its specific social practices. It identifies what the sources call natural experiments, instances where unique policies or innovative practices within the reservation lead to demonstrably positive or negative outcomes compared to the global norm. These anonymized insights, key point, anonymized are then shared with the greater AI human network.
Okay, so the local AI observes, analyzes, finds interesting results, and shares them upwards. And the greater AI human network, in turn, evaluates these insights, draws broad lessons, and critically adapts its own overarching policies based on these learnings. It's a continuous feedback loop from the fringes to the center.
Exactly. An illustrative example provided in the sources is a dissenting reservation that decides to implement a 3-day, 30-hour work week for its citizens, a radical idea in most places today.
Right. And what happens in this example?
This natural experiment, as detailed in the source, yields observed positive impacts within that specific reservation. Things like maintained or even increased productivity, significantly improved work-life balance for its citizens, enhanced mental and physical health outcomes, and a noticeable boost in overall community well-being and social connection. The powerful implication here is that these empirically validated findings from a specific natural experiment can then inform the larger global system. The greater AI can potentially integrate these lessons, promoting more inclusive, flexible, and well-being focused forms of governance across the entire planet because it learned from successful divergence.
Wow. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it introduces a truly dynamic model of continuous learning and adaptation for global governance, where even contained dissent, far from being just a problem to be managed, actively contributes to the evolution and improvement of the overall governing system. It aims to build trust, not just through consensus or efficiency, but through demonstrable data-driven improvement, showing that the system isn't rigid but constantly optimizing for human well-being, even by actively learning from radically different approaches tried out in these reservations. It's evolving social contract, literally learning as it goes. We've just immersed ourselves in this incredibly ambitious AI-driven governance model, examining its technical blueprint, its proposed societal transition, its innovative approach to managing dissent, and fostering continuous learning. It's a lot to take in. Now, let's pivot to something that, on the surface, might seem completely unrelated to algorithms and global governance systems. Yet as we delve into it, you'll uncover profound intrinsic connections to the very essence of building trust, shaping societal values, and establishing core responsibilities. This next section centers on a truly provocative redefinition of faith.
This redefinition is definitely radical. It departs significantly from conventional interpretations and demands careful consideration. The source boldly proposes that faith should be redefined as trust in things you have reason to believe in without complete understanding. Let that sink in. It immediately follows this with a pretty biting critique of traditional, unquestioning faith, asserting that faith without evidence is a perversion of a basic need to act in partial ignorance within an infinitely complex world. This suggests that true faith, in this new context, is actually a rational and necessary response to the inherent complexity of existence, not an abandonment of reason. It's trusting based on good evidence, even if the evidence isn't complete proof.
Wow, that's a direct challenge to deeply held beliefs for many, isn't it? Redefining a concept that lies at the heart of countless cultures and personal worldviews. The source further warns about the profound consequences of rejecting this new, evidence-based definition of trust. It states that a childhood rejection of this concept could lead to a dysfunctional ability to trust in much of anything in adulthood. This speaks to a fundamental psychological and social need for a functional framework of trust, even when faced with irreducible complexity, and how it's built or damaged from a young age.
And it continues its challenge to traditional authority, particularly in childhood education. It argues, quite strongly, telling them there's an authority above their eyes and ears is wrong. Instead, it says they need to know what the people around them think is true, but that is distinct from insisting that the norms are right. This isn't just about skepticism, it's a call for fostering critical thinking and empowering individuals, even children, to independently evaluate societal norms and received wisdom. Don't just tell them what to believe, tell them why others believe it and let them evaluate. It connects beautifully to the theme of continuous questioning and human-centric adaptation that Diogenes so powerfully championed earlier, suggesting that the ability to question and trust discerningly is a cornerstone of a healthy, evolving society.
And in this broader context of children developing their capacity for discerning trust and critical thinking, the source then introduces a truly powerful concept, a comprehensive list of children's human rights within the very intimate setting of the family. Is presented as a list of 10 suggested non-mandated rights specifically for children in rich Western societies, framed not as what currently exists by law, but emphatically as what should be, the ideal standard.
These proposed rights are fundamental for nurturing a child's holistic development and for fostering an environment of genuine trust, respect, and autonomy from the earliest age. They're designed to empower children to navigate the complex world we've been discussing. Let's list them. The right to emotional support, crucial for building strong self-esteem and resilience. Seems obvious, but often lacking. The right to age-appropriate information about their bodies, their emotions, and the world around them, empowering them to make informed decisions and understand their place. No more because I said so. The right to express their opinion without fear of punishment or ridicule, fostering open communication and validating their voice. The right to reasonable privacy, acknowledging their developing individuality and personal space. The right to participate in family decisions that directly impact them, teaching agency and the principles of democratic participation from within the home itself. The right to be free from discriminatory treatment within the family, fostering equality and self-worth. The right to age-appropriate responsibilities, essential for developing self-efficacy and a sense of contribution. Not just chores, but meaningful roles. The right to access mental health support, recognizing the vital importance of emotional well-being, destigmatizing it. The right to a safe digital environment, acknowledging the omnipresence of technology in their lives and the need for guidance. And finally, the right to engage in cultural religious practices of their choice, fostering tolerance, self-discovery, and respect for diversity, even if those choices differ from their parents.
The relevance here is profound, linking back to everything. These rights aren't just a list of ideal behaviors. They fundamentally define what it means for children to grow up in a trusting, respectful environment where their inherent value as individuals is recognized and cultivated. It's about empowering them to become autonomous, critically thinking beings from a young age, preparing them to engage with and even shape the complex AI-governed world we've been discussing, where critical thought and individual agency are paramount. It's a human foundation for building a better society, regardless of the technology used to govern it. You need citizens capable of discerning trust.
Now, building directly on this deeply personal idea of societal values, accountability, and the critical importance of protecting our most vulnerable, our sources then plunge into a truly radical and, frankly, inflammatory proposal. This is the monument of shame. This is where the theoretical meets the stark, often brutal reality of human consequence.
Okay, brace yourselves. This particular concept will undoubtedly make some listeners deeply uncomfortable, maybe even angry, but it's presented in the sources as a critical, albeit extreme, thought experiment about accountability. The initial proposal is for life-size statues of parents who neglect their children, and this results in death and a great national monument as a shaming ritual. This is, wow. The source leaves no detail to the imagination. It describes the internal advisors' meticulous planning of this dreadful monument. Its artistic representation would be lifelike, designed to be chilling in its accuracy. Its location would be highly visible to maximize public impact, and the unveiling ceremony itself would be orchestrated as an event of public humiliation and collective scorn. The advisors even grapple with the complex legal and ethical considerations, discussing how they would defend our position and justify the monument as a necessary deterrent.
This is indeed an extreme proposal, clearly designed to provoke intense ethical debate and force a reevaluation of societal priorities regarding child protection. An accompanying academic paper then explores the likely outcomes of this proposed monument with cold, objective analysis. It examines the potential deterrent effects. Could this actually stop future neglect? Could it significantly raise public awareness? Maybe. However, it equally delves into the profound psychological and social consequences, carefully weighing the significant risk of public stigmatization, not just of the individuals but their families, against the potential for galvanizing communities to actively improve child welfare and prevention efforts. Could shame backfire?
The paper also rigorously analyzes the potential cultural implications. How might such a monument reshape deeply ingrained societal attitudes towards parental responsibility? Could it ultimately prioritize child well-being on an unprecedented scale? But crucially, it doesn't shy away from the immense ethical concerns. It questions the rights and dignity of those depicted, explores the potential for secondary harm to their remaining family members, especially other children, and grapples with the delicate, chilling balance of costs versus perceived benefits for the greater good. Is the price too high?
This raises an incredibly important and uncomfortable question for any society, doesn't it? Can public shaming, even in its most extreme forms, ever be justified for perceived greater social good, particularly the protection of the vulnerable? And what does implementing such a mechanism say about the nature of societal trust, the enforcement of core values, and the limits of collective punishment? It forces us to confront difficult questions about how far society will go or should go to protect its children.
So how do various moral and spiritual frameworks respond to such a provocative and ethically charged idea? Our sources bring together 7 revered religious figures: Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, Moses, Shiva, Confucius, and Guru Nanak, to debate this proposal. It's presented as a powerful interfaith dialogue.
Initially, their collective response is overwhelmingly negative. They all vote against the monument, according to the source material. Their reasoning is deeply rooted in the core tenets of their respective traditions. They emphasize universal love, the transformative power of forgiveness, boundless compassion, the pursuit of understanding over judgment, the path of spiritual growth, the importance of moral guidance through teaching, the necessity of addressing the root causes of suffering, like poverty or mental illness, the power of positive preventative solutions, and fundamentally the inherent dignity of all human beings, even those who have done terrible things. Collectively, their initial stance prioritizes healing, rehabilitation, and prevention over what they see as a punitive, potentially destructive act of public shaming.
But then a critical turning point occurs in this imagined dialogue. Child welfare, psychology, and sociology experts intervene in the debate. They present a powerful counter-argument grounded in empirical evidence and the stark realities of suffering. They highlight in visceral detail the lifelong psychological, emotional, and physical consequences that severe child neglect inflicts on survivors. The devastating, lasting impact. They compellingly argue that in cases of severe neglect leading to death, stronger interventions and consequences are necessary to protect vulnerable children and to prevent future tragedies. Something has to change. Crucially, they don't just advocate for punishment, they suggest that a monument could be designed differently, to promote accountability and responsibility rather than solely blame and resentment, implying a shift in focus from mere shaming to a profound call for collective guardianship and remembrance.
What's truly fascinating here is how the religious figures, particularly Buddha in the source's narrative, are depicted as actively engaging with and subsequently reconsidering our stance on this issue in light of the experts' compelling evidence and the undeniable reality of sustained human suffering. This moment powerfully illustrates a crucial tension. The tension between deeply held ideals of compassion, forgiveness, and spiritual growth versus the practical, urgent necessity for concrete consequences and robust protection of the most vulnerable in society. It demonstrates how evidence of real-world suffering and impact can, in this scenario, shift deeply held moral and spiritual positions, prompting a more pragmatic, perhaps interventionist approach to societal values. Idealism meets harsh reality.
And then, the debate is profoundly punctuated by a poignant interjection from a character simply identified as the neglected child. This voice cuts through all the philosophical and ethical arguments, bringing the raw, real-world suffering to the forefront. But what about the children who will continue to suffer if nothing is done? What about the parents who will never face the consequences of their actions? This powerful question emphasizes the urgency of the problem and the very real human suffering that initially spurred this radical, if controversial, idea for accountability. It's a reminder of the why behind such an extreme proposal. Who speaks for the victims?
This powerful moment of intervention from the very individuals the monument aims to protect truly sets the stage for a reinterpretation of the monument's ultimate impact. It begins to shift from being perceived solely as a purely shaming ritual to something far more complex and, quite surprisingly, ultimately hopeful and constructive in the narrative that follows.
Exactly. Our sources detail the evolving impacts and interpretations of this monument, moving significantly beyond its initial inflammatory concept. It's not just about shame anymore. We first encounter the unintentionally neglectful family, the Johnsons. They're depicted as initially fraught with toxicity, carrying weary shoulders, clearly struggling under a burden of dysfunction they may not fully recognize or know how to escape. But when they visit the monument, and particularly when they read the list of the 10 rights of children etched upon it, those rights we discussed earlier, there's a powerful, almost catalytic shift described. It leads them to a newfound understanding and determination to change. The monument, rather than solely shaming them into defensiveness, pierced the veil of their toxic patterns, inspiring a painful but ultimately healing journey of self-awareness and corrective action. It becomes a mirror, not just a judge.
This narrative development is critical because it reframes the monument not simply as an instrument of punitive shame, but as a potential catalyst for profound self-reflection and positive behavioral transformation within families. Maybe shame isn't the primary mechanism after all. Then we encounter another kind family, also identified as Johnson in the source, interestingly. In this case, the parents themselves had suffered neglect in their own childhoods, but crucially, had not perpetuated that cycle with their own children. They broke the cycle, they visit the monument and use it as an opportunity to have a deeply meaningful, open conversation with their children about their own painful past, and crucially, to reaffirm their unwavering commitment to always love and protect you.
In this context, the monument transcends its initial harsh purpose entirely. It becomes a powerful reminder of that promise, reinforcing a positive cycle of compassionate care and actively breaking generational trauma. It transforms into a symbol of hope, continuity, and the enduring strength of the human spirit to overcome adversity, a testament to resilience. And perhaps most powerfully, we witness the profound impact on Danny, a neglected child, during a school field trip to the monument.
Danny is initially depicted as withdrawn, feeling invisible, unseen in the world, as many neglected children do. But as he stands before the monument, reading the 10 fundamental rights of children etched there, a spark ignites within him. His heart races, and he has a profound revelation. He realizes with overwhelming clarity that he deserved better, that his experience wasn't normal or acceptable. This powerful, self-affirming realization gives him the courage, a courage he didn't know he possessed, to speak to his teacher, Mrs. Wilson, about his situation. This act of vulnerability leads to an immediate sense of relief and transforms the monument, for him, into a beacon of light in his otherwise bleak life. The monument, through this perspective, empowers the very individuals it was designed to protect, giving them voice and validating their intrinsic worth. It tells them they matter.
So what does this all mean for our understanding of this radical proposal? The monument, initially conceived as a raw, shaming ritual, truly evolves in the narrative. It becomes a multifaceted, complex symbol of remembrance, yes, but also a stern call for accountability, and perhaps most surprisingly, a profound catalyst for hope, individual change, and the restoration of trust within families and society. It's not just about pointing fingers at past failures. It's about inspiring fundamental positive shifts in behavior and reinforcing core societal values moving forward.
And this evolving interpretation aligns powerfully with established sociological mechanisms. Public monuments and even religious temples, as our sources note, are not merely static structures. They possess a unique capacity to profoundly shape social norms and collective identities. They serve as living sites of collective memory, continuously reinforcing shared values, commemorating past lessons, both positive and negative, and actively promoting social cohesion by articulating what a society cherishes and what it condemns. The monument, in its final evolving interpretation, fulfills this role not primarily through condemnation, but through a powerful, transformative articulation of society's most fundamental values like the rights of children and its highest aspirations for protecting them.
We've covered an immense landscape today, really, moving from the intricate blueprints of an AI-driven global governance model, the DDI and AIPE, all the way to the deeply personal and profound societal reevaluation of human rights and accountability, particularly concerning our children, using the lens of faith in this monument concept.
Indeed. We've explored the ambitious attempts to engineer a new form of global governance through an advanced AI, driven by the principles of direct democracy. We looked at how it navigates the complexities of technology, the enduring nuances of human nature, and the inevitable challenges of dissent. This included that fascinating concept of learning from natural experiments in designated dissenting reservations, designed to continuously improve the entire system through iterative adaptation. Learning from difference.
And we've also delved into a profound redefinition of faith as discerning trust in the face of complexity. Trust based on reason, even without complete understanding. And the challenging yet ultimately transformative societal effort to ensure fundamental rights and accountability for children, as explored through the 10 rights in the journey of understanding the monument. How even a radical symbolic act could evolve into a multifaceted catalyst for awareness, healing, and hope, not just shame.
What clearly emerges from synthesizing these two distinct yet connected narratives, I think, is a coherent worldview, where societies are continuously grappling with the fundamental questions. How do we build and maintain trust? How do we effectively enforce core values? How do we adapt intelligently to escalating complexity? These are the perennial questions. Whether through the bold embrace of technological innovation as seen in the AI governance model, or through a deeply human, sometimes confrontational reevaluation of fundamental responsibilities like parental care and children's rights, it's all part of the same continuous journey. It's presented as a perpetual process of questioning, adapting, and relentlessly striving for a more just, more compassionate, and more inclusive world where every voice is heard and every individual is truly valued.
This deep dive truly makes you pause and consider, doesn't it? It leaves you with a lot to think about. Given these contrasting yet complementary visions, one highly technological, one deeply human and value-driven, what does it truly mean to design a society that effectively builds trust, fiercely nurtures its most vulnerable members, and genuinely empowers every individual, especially when the lines between human intelligence and artificial intelligence become increasingly blurred in shaping our collective future? It's a question that resonates far beyond this conversation, I think, something profound for you to ponder until our next deep dive.